Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I call Peini Henare.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Look, Mr. Chair, I want to bring to the attention in part 1, clause 5, and it says in there, an offender who is subject to an electronic monitoring condition may be required to have electronic monitoring equipment attached to his or her body. Straightforward. Must comply with written instructions from a probation officer that are reasonably necessary for the effective administration of the electronic monitoring. For example, an instruction to regularly charge the equipment. To regularly charge the equipment, I think that makes a little bit of sense. You've got to make sure that the bracelet is able to be monitored, that has a bit of power. So I think that's a pretty fair request and through written submission from the parole officer. But I wonder what else might be in that scope. I wonder what else might be considered a reasonable request on the part of a probation officer to that particular person. Sure, I understand on the serious end of the spectrum around those offenders that it's important that some heavy restrictions be placed on them, but I wonder for the lower end of the scale, I wonder what that might mean. Just putting the question out there. I wonder too, Mr. Chair, if actually this is the best technology or the best equipment currently available out there. Because I would have imagined that if somebody who has domestic violence convictions, who is out on electronic monitoring, with technology nowadays, you can pinpoint places that would automatically set off an alarm. For example, if I want to mark spot X when I go fishing, I mark it on my phone. And I can constantly go back there. It actually sends me a reminder that I'm in the vicinity, all on my smartphone. And I wonder then if the best use, this particular equipment is actually the best available to do what is a pretty difficult job. The reason I say that is if somebody with domestic violence charges is ordered to stay away from a particular area, to not be in the vicinity of a particular area, whether or not the technology should actually have a pre-warn system there that allows those who are monitoring it to actually stop it before it takes place, before any potential crime takes place, or before the person who is being supervised actually breaches, that's the word, breaches the order imposed on them by not coming within a certain vicinity of a person or coming within kui or stone's throw, if you like, of an actual location. And I wonder, Mr. Chair, because a quick Google search will actually show that there is technology out there that can do that. And I wonder, we've already heard about the failures of this particular device, snip and walk away, the need also to charge them pretty regularly. But I wonder whether or not this is actually the best use of technology that is already available on the market. Just asking the question, putting it out there. I wonder how wide the scope went to ensure that the tools, the devices, the bracelets that are being used are the best bang for buck, to make sure that we actually can monitor these people properly. It isn't simply just about sitting there and staring at a computer screen, hoping that the GPS, the bracelet, does its job, or the offender has followed the written requirements given to them by the probation officer to make sure it's charged. You can actually predetermine some of these things. In the famous words of the All Blacks victory on Saturday, you can front load. Front load. Yeah? Make sure that you're actually ahead of the game. Make sure that when we put in place legislation like this, that we're not back here trying to change the legislation again just to keep up with technology. When we already know, like I said, a quick Google search on my phone showed me that the technology actually is already out there to do exactly what was described by the captain of the All Blacks team as front loading. Getting ahead of the issue here. Making sure that we, one, keep victims safe, and two, make sure that these offenders don't go on to re-offend. And it could be a simple thing, by coming, as I've already said, into the proximity of a particular place where the order says they're not supposed to go to. And I wonder, Mr. Chair, like I said, how wide the scope went to make sure that this is the best technology bang for buck, because you've heard it on this.
Paul Foster Bell.
Be now put.
The question is that the question be now put. Those of